Okay, so we're at that point. What takes you back? What was there a trigger or something happened that next thing you know you're waking up in the prime timeline?
There was nothing to give rhyme or reason to that I was coming back or anything. I remember that I was getting groceries. I was the only one home. I had to do a couple trips. On my second trip back in from taking in groceries, as soon as I entered through the door, I was awake.
The Bodega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Bodega and sharing one of yours.
Welcome back to another episode of Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm Rye, the Codega, your guide. And tonight, you guys are in for a treat. We are headed off to another timeline, another reality. You know, I often say that this is our prime timeline. And the other ones that are kind of in the wings and off to the sides, those are our secondaries. You know, it could be like timeline A, B, C, D, anything. It goes on for an infinity. And through these timelines, sometimes there's going to be only slight differences, slight variations. Maybe instead of things being called Coke, it's called coal or something like that. And that might be the only difference when everything else is exactly the same. So in this episode, we are joined by Steven, who I met on Reddit. I stumbled upon his post and it was fascinating. Now, Steven went to sleep. I know it. He went to sleep and he woke up in another life for 15 more years. Okay? So he lived for 15 years. He went to sleep, lived for 15 years, and then woke up just like, went to sleep on a Saturday, woke up on a Sunday, and that was it. But between those 8 sleeping hours, he lived a whole 15 years. Now, I'm excited to share this story with you. So you guys just sit tight. We'll get to it right away. I want to say, if you guys want to support the show, you guys can donate to PayPal. You guys can sign up to Patreon, or you can become a member on YouTube. It really helps the show. There's a lot of expenses that go on with producing a show, and it just helps me a lot because it's a lot of work. All right. That's it for the housekeeping. Let's get to this. Okay, everyone. I want to welcome Steven to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I was flipping through Reddit and I came across this post where I don't know, where Steven had posted this, where he had lived a whole almost other lifetime. We'll say 10 to 15 years in another reality, more or less, but it was sleep induced. And, I've had other people talk about they're having NDEs and living other lives as well. But Steven has accessed that through his dreams. But I'm going to butcher this, so I don't want to butcher it too much. So, Steven, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction and we'll start from there. We'll start like how this all occurred and what happened.
Yeah, so it started like a pretty normal day, went to work, came home, same evening routine. I'm a very routine person, so I go to bed around the same time, 10:30. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was a normal day. So then, I went to sleep and it just started where I came to, and I'll call it a dream because I don't know what else to call it. But when I first came to in the dream, there was that moment of confusion. So if you ever walk into a room and you're like, oh, what did I come into this room for? Kind of like that.
All the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, kind of like that. Kind of like that one, just to be like, why am I here or what's going on kind of thing. And then after that, it all just like snapped into place. Like after that moment, like I didn't question anything. Nothing, alluded to like, you know, my waking life or whatever. It was just totally,
And
it
you
was
were
just totally
in
new.
sorry, and you were like in complete control. Because I know sometimes in dreams we're kind of like you're thinking you're doing something, and then it kind of like it's this almost third person kind of point of view. But you were in your own body, or hang on, just wait. Were you in your own body, or were you in like a different body of sorts? Were you yourself
No,
now, or someone different?
it was me. I wouldn't say now because like the whole like timeline's different, but it was me. Like, all my memories were there. Um, Everything was kind of the same, apart from a few things which I'll get into. But I've always had crazy dreams. Like I've had lucid dreams. I've had one or two like astral projections or whatever you want to call it. Those out of body experiences. Um, Even as a kid growing up, like I would have like these very vivid dreams. And what stuck out to me or what sticks out to me the most is when you're dreaming, like it feels like almost everything's heightened. Like your emotions are heightened, the physicality of everything. If you get like hurt in a dream, it's like, I don't know, it's like a phantom hurt kind of thing. I don't know how else to explain it, but in this, it was just real. Like everything felt like stereotypical real. Like if I got a paper cut, I felt a paper cut. If things happened, I like felt it like genuinely. It wasn't like any of these types of like, weird amalgamations of when you have these dreams and you feel all these different types of things. It was normal everyday life,
Oh,
which
okay,
is something that, you know, I've never experienced anything like this.
fair enough. Now, when you came to, you said you came to. That's the starting point. Where was that? Were you like waking up off of your bed in this other timeline? Would say I think it's another timeline that you kind of jumped over into. Were you waking up from your own dream in this timeline?
No, it was almost like, like on Google Maps where you drop like a person into the street view. It was kind of like that. Like I was like dropped into like mid conversation. I was, in my bed with my boyfriend at the time, which, in my waking world, that was my ex boyfriend from 2 years ago, which was very weird. And we were just having a conversation. We were in bed, just talking, goofing off, um, talking about life and everything. And that's just, where it started. And like, I didn't question anything. It just felt like this is the way it's always been. There was never any confusion after that initial moment of coming to.
So it was like almost a transference of your actual consciousness into this other like vessel of sorts, and you just kind of took over, and took control.
Basically, I mean, like it was me, which, I've had dreams where like, I was like another person or, seen from a third party perspective or whatever. But like, for all intents and purposes, it was me, memories and everything.
And when you say memories as well, are they memories of like that you shared, or like that you have of like of this timeline? And I'm going to say like like this is our prime timeline, I believe.
Okay.
Were they memories of this prime timeline, or were they memories of that timeline?
They were kind of the same because like, everything was the same except for like, a couple of things. Like my job was a little different. Um, Obviously, I was still in a relationship with that guy and everything. So a lot of it was basically, my crime timeline memories with some additives of fill in
Just
the gaps kind of thing.
slight deviations. All right. So let's continue. Let's move forward from you guys are in bed, and you're have talking and chit chatting. Where do we go from there? Like, tell me about your your life within this other life now. Like, you said your job was a little bit different. Let's go into that as well. Or
Yeah. So I worked for the same company, but my job was a little different. It was in a different sector of the company. And then going forward, this is the part that's really weird because going forward, like I went through a whole nother path. Like, So I went from, working, in a management position and everything to now working in like a support position kind of thing. And then after, couple months and everything of just enjoying life and everything, getting engaged, all that fun stuff, um, we ended up moving up to New Jersey, um, in the Hoboken area, which is crazy because I've been to New Jersey before, but I've never been to the Hoboken area. Um, and we lived there for, about a year or two. Um, Things changed and whatever. I got another promotion. Some things, he kind of hated his job. So then we ended up moving to the Pennsylvania area, more specifically the King of Prussia. And so based on the ending of this dream, like I know the address, but I looked up the address and it does not exist.
I was going to ask you, like you said, you went to Hoboken area in Jersey. I was wondering if you're able to like find the location. But now you checked out the address in Pennsylvania, but you're like, it doesn't exist. Oh,
Yeah.
that would be
But a
something
lot
if
of
it did.
things were the same. So like this address in Pennsylvania in the King of Prussia area, it was literally up the street from a school. And I looked it up and sure enough, the street is actually from the school, is up from the school, but it's not the same school. Like, I tried looking up like their mascots, the Vikings or whatever, but in my secondary timeline, it was the Badgers. So like it was the same but different.
Yes. Wow. But
Very weird.
so like this is so fascinating that it's so in depth. You're like, you remember the name of the street, you remember the mascot from the school, you knew there was one school up. And lo and behold, like this road is right on a school, but it's not the exact school, which makes sense if, in a way, I guess, if you're thinking about it, that things are slightly different. But this is mind blowing. So you moved around for your work. Wow. And then you said you got engaged as well.
Yep. I got engaged, got married. I went to friends that I don't have in this lifetime. I went to their weddings. I went to funerals of friends. Um, like, all the big lifetime achievement things that just, I don't know how to explain. Um, and then like what stuck with me most is that we ended up having a kid together.
Okay.
And me, I am not a nurturing person. Uh, my friends have kids and everything, they're great and everything, but I've never really had the desire to really have a kid. So that's kind of what stuck with me most during this dream is because, we went through the whole process of, getting a surrogate and everything. We had a kid. And like I talked about in my Reddit post, like the one point that, just highlighted the whole experience was the moment, we're in the hospital and we finally get to hold our kid for the first time. And that experience is something I can't explain. I've never felt, I don't know if you have kids or
I
anything.
do. I do. I have a daughter. I know exactly how that experience feels. Yes.
And like in that moment, like I just remember this, I don't know, responsibility, this
This
gratitude.
it's everything, and it's like this moment, life completely changes. Like nothing's ever going to be the same at this from this point forward. Yes.
Yeah. And I've never felt anything like that. And it's just crazy. Like I watched my child grow up, I helped him with homework. It was, you know,
So how difficult is that for you to remember this now?
it's pretty difficult. I mean, I feel like now I have baby fever. It's kind of crazy. Um, but there's a lot of grief that comes with it.
That's
Um,
exactly what I was thinking about. Yes.
it's it feels weird to call it grief because I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know what happened kind of thing. But as far as like, you know, remembering what he looks like, you know, spending that time with him, having those moments, it's just, I don't know, it feels like I lost somebody.
It,
It's
exactly. Like I'm going to tell you that those emotions are real. Even let's just say that this wasn't real. Those emotions that we feel, those are real. Like I've had these dreams and these memories still stick with me to these days. That just because maybe something didn't happen, but the emotions that are tied to that memory are legitimate. We have to respect that. And like that, yeah, you did. You went through things in another life, even though it was this life, but it was another life. But you've experienced it. You felt that. You had those emotional ups and downs. Um, and then I don't want to go to the end right now, but then it's kind of like they're torn away from you, and it's just like everything's behind a door. You can see through that door, but you can't go through anymore. You can see it use like I can see everything that happened, but I can't go back. I can't access this. I can't go through again. And that must be such a hard experience because it's there, it's just out of reach, but you're like, I had this and now it's gone.
yeah, definitely. And what also like hurts is like as time goes on, like it does get fuzzier. Like just like with a normal dream kind of thing, like you start to lose details and everything. Like, I mentioned in my Reddit post, like I wish I could like draw him because like I can see him. I can see him perfectly, but like what if like one day like I won't be able to remember that? And that's the hard part to really come to terms with.
Extremely hard. I keep a ongoing dream journal, and I used to try to draw things. And like you, I'm horrible. I don't have an artistic. I'm able to like use the computer to draw things, almost like or I don't even want to say that. I can make things or I can find things. I can find things online that look like it. And I've been doing that. But now with AI, I've been able to kind of like, you know, give it a bit of a better description and get AI to try to generate something that's getting closer and closer. Maybe you could try, using AI to get something somewhat close. And who
Yeah, that's a
knows?
very good
But
idea.
I do know that AI has like this coldness to it, almost like this it's like emptiness within when you get these pictures of like people. Like I use them all the time, not all the time, for my thumbnails and whatnot for YouTube. And sometimes it's just kind of like this emptiness that's in there, and I'm not a fan of that. But it can be there to help you, maybe to somehow draw it out for you, because that would be something I think I would remember, would want to like hold dear, because even with regular memories, regular things that happened when I was a child, those are fuzzy. It's not only our dream memories, but just those memories as well. Those are fuzzy as well. And I totally understand what you're saying about dream memories, because I'm on the same wavelength where I've had these like certain dreams. I can be like, yeah, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one. I can think of them just like that, but they do start to get fuzzy, and that's why I write them down. I should be writing down everything that happens in my life as well, so I don't forget. Um, but I think it's important that we write these things down. Now, okay, so and when you got married, did you go for a honeymoon? Did you do anything special, or was it a small marriage, or what was that like?
So the wedding was small, but we did go to Europe for the honeymoon. I remember the whole trip. We started out in Paris, went through the French Riviera, all that good stuff. It was about 2 weeks. I remember, all the little details, wine tastings, normal days, just sitting on the balcony. It's just all there. Like,
I have a question. I have a ton of questions though. So
mhm.
when you went to sleep, did you dream?
I don't really remember. I mean, I know I went to sleep, but I don't necessarily remember dream. Like, I feel like I did.
Because well, there's a lot of people that I talk to. They're like, I don't remember my dreams, and who knows? Maybe they're in the same type of scenario as you were, just a reverse, an inverse of this. But yeah, it's interesting. So like, you remember every fine little detail: wine tasting, French Riviera. That is fascinating. Like those details don't necessarily come through all the time with dreams. Okay, so that's what you did. You moved to Pennsylvania. You had your boy. What was your? Do you recall your boy's name?
Michael.
Michael. Okay.
Yep.
Strong name. Now Archangel Michael, the angel. Uh, where did you? So he was born. He was given to you at the hospital. What next after that?
I went through the motions of life, you know, I went to work every day. I got to the point where at like that promotion moving to Pennsylvania, I was able to work from home at that point. So a lot of it was working from home. I, went to his little preschool graduation. I went to different things, as he was going through school, um, anniversaries, like all of it. I, you know, boring talks, Zoom meetings, talking with my coworkers. Like it's like all the boring
All
stuff.
the mundane stuff. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. Like it's crazy, crazy.
That is extremely crazy. Now, okay, so we're at that point. What takes you back? What was there a trigger or something happened that next thing you know you're waking up in the prime timeline?
There was nothing to give rhyme or reason to that I was coming back or anything. I remember that I was getting groceries. I was the only one home. I had to do a couple trips. On my second trip back in from taking in groceries, as soon as I entered through the door, I was awake. And that's how I remember the address because the address was right, on the door frame. And I woke up and it was like a snap. Like if you have like a nightmare or something that immediately wakes you up, it was just like a jolted out of the bed kind of thing. Um, and I cried for a little bit after that. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I wish there was like some type of warning or something, but there was nothing. It was just snap as soon as it was just like going into the dream coming out.
See, it's a yeah, that is incredible. I do recall listening to a prisoner talk about his cellmate. His cellmate used to sleep for 12 hours a day. Okay, which was it's quite excessive, but every day he would sleep for 12 hours. And he finally asked him, like, why? And he's like, just don't disturb me. And he explained why. He says, when I go to sleep, I wake up in another life every single time. So kind of like what you're doing, but instead of it being 8 hours of sleep and like 15 years, it was 12 hours of sleep, 12 hours of life out there. And it was like matched, like one for one. And the reason why he didn't want to be woken up as well is because like he was living an everyday life, but he wasn't in prison. He was outside of prison. So it was kind of like him escaping prison for 12 hours every day. And he talked about this and he went in depth about his wife and his family and everything. And it sounds very similar to what you are talking about. Yours is just your ratio is much different, 8 hours to 15 years. But that's incredible. If you don't mind, could you share that address? What was the
Yeah.
address?
The Pennsylvania address was 367 Springhouse Road,
Springhouse Road. Wow.
and it was in the King of Prussia area.
Jeez. That is incredible.
Yeah.
And so you wake up. What then? Like you said, you cried, and I don't blame you. Like I completely don't blame you. I it's and I want everybody who's listening or watching to think about that. You're living a whole other life, and the next thing you know, it's gone in an instant. And I don't mean to be inconsiderate or anything. I just want everybody to realize like the magnitude of this. It. I know some people will be like, "Oh, it's just a dream." No, it's not. Like I can see from you that Stephen, this wasn't just a dream. This was something more, and how it affected you. Like you said, when you got up, you cried. I completely understand. Now, what next? Like what did you talk to anybody that day or what how did that day go about for you?
So I had work the next day. So I still went to work and everything. And I just tried to write it off at first. I kept trying to tell myself like it was just a dream. You know, I've had crazy dreams. It's just a different type of crazy dream. You know, I just kept trying to tell myself it was, just something weird that happened. And as it went forward, after a couple days, I'm like, I can't keep this to myself. So talked to my friends about it. They were really supportive and everything. Um, and there was some comfort because one of my friends, she's like, well, if it is a different time or whatever, there's another you out there. And while you don't get to experience that, you had the joy of taking that time to experience that. So just be happy for the other you kind of thing. And that does bring me some solace, knowing that, you know, it's not for nothing kind of thing. Um, and, I still tried to put out my head, move on kind of thing. And I'll just see like little things and whatnot. And it'll remind me of some memories, and it's hard to kind of just throw away kind of thing.
Of course, like extremely hard. Now, I have a question. Have you reached out to your ex?
I have not.
Okay. I was wondering
I
if
have
you would
not.
take that chance and be
I have
like,
not.
you'd never believe this.
No, I don't think they would receive it the same way. They'd be like, you're crazy.
Unless they're like, guess what? I had the same dream. No, that would be crazy actually if you guys were able to like confirm, be like, we had the same dream. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, what do you think actually happened? I know you said before we started recording, you said that you've like started to take a deep dive into like maybe quantum entanglement, and other like dream journeying. What, where has this led you, and what do you think really happened?
Yeah, so I've read a lot of books, The Holographic Universe, The Hidden Reality, You Are the Universe, Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire, which has to do with synchronicity, because that's something else that I've noticed since then is that I see a lot of synchronicities. Don't know if it's related, but just another rabbit hole to go down. The power of your subconscious mind, different things like that. And, you know, I'm very science background. I'm not necessarily the most religious person or anything. Um, so quantum mechanics seems to be the best answer right now.
Yeah, like
Quantum immortality.
like quantum entanglement as well, because we are entangled with our other selves living in these other lives. It's just, how do we access that? It's kind of through, definitely quite interesting. Now, by reading all this, what kind of answer have you come up with? Have you come up with any type of answer, any type of maybe not an answer, but an idea?
Um, Nothing feels right
Fair
because,
enough.
I don't think I'll ever have an answer kind of thing. Um, but kind of like my friend said, the one that gives you most comfort is that, it was a different timeline. You know, the whole idea of, every decision you make branches off another universe kind of thing. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe it was just a different branch of some decisions I made and it led to a whole different life kind of thing. So that's what I like to think happened. It was sort of a branching of timelines, and I just happened to get a glimpse into it, kind of thing.
It's quite interesting. Have you ever heard of the TV show? This is an older TV show, but it was called Quantum Leap. You ever hear of Quantum Leap?
I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
Okay.
Was that on like the Sci-Fi Channel or
Oh,
something?
this was like back in the 80s. What it was this guy had invented this quantum kind of like teleportation. They called it Quantum Leap. And he went into this device, and what happened was his consciousness was jumping around to all these different times and taking over other people's bodies. And the reason being was they were set to either do something very bad, or they needed to complete something. There was something that had to happen, an event that had to happen, and they never did that before, in that timeline. So he had to complete these tasks for them, so to speak. And once he completed it, then he would jump out and go into another body, another consciousness. And I'm not saying that's exactly what you're doing. You're jumping around, but you could be in that line jumping into your own body at that time. Maybe that person of you needed to do some things, and you were able to complete those tasks to their fulfillment that he wouldn't have been able to. and, maybe actually saying, let's get married and then having a child, maybe you actually did that. And by doing that, that child in that timeline is going to complete something that maybe is much greater than we'll ever know. It could be something along that line. There's something positive to look at that.
I would like to think that my child is destined for greatness.
There we go. There we go. Yes. And that being said, like I've had dreams where I have done that. I have one time I jumped into a it was 11 or 13 year old little black boys. I was in a black boy's body. And I remember looking at myself and being like, holy crap, I'm black now. And I had my sisters, and my one sister was going to be involved in a robbery. And she, I believe, was going to get killed, or she was going to get, she was either going to be killed in the robbery. She was part of the people who were robbing. She wasn't the
Oh,
actual,
okay.
she was like along for it. She wasn't doing it. She was kind of like wrong place, wrong time, wrong people. And, they're going to do this. And she was just there with them. And I had to prevent that. And I remember telling them though, as well, because I was aware that I'm like this 40-year-old white man in this black boy. And I'm like, no, I'm actually this 40-year-old guy inside this body. And yeah. And I've had a couple of those dreams where I am in someone else's body. Another time I was like in the 17 or 18-year-old boy's body, and he had to attend football practice, and I've never played football before, and I had to try making him, it was to make the team, I had to try making the team as well. And it was quite interesting, and it was I got him on the team, but I never
Way to go.
I didn't do as good as he should have done, but he made the
Oh,
team. He made the team. That was it. In that universe, actually, I approached a scientist at that time and I said, listen, this is what's happening. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be in another dimension, another timeline. And he knew how to get me back. He did a drawing on a chalkboard. He explained it all to me. It had to do with energy flows and apertures and disrupting this energy flow with a larger, heavy gravitational object and pushing it into the flow to create a disruption. And that would be like the portal back into my time. It looked the drawing after I drew it all out, and then after I compared it, it looked very similar to the Van Allen radiation belt circling the Earth, and that other heavy gravitational object, or that heavy object, was the moon. So the moon was a portal back for me to come back into this time. And I've heard other theories about the moon being some sort of portal of sorts. So, but I'll leave that for another show. But it's quite interesting. Yes. So this was fascinating. So where do you go from here, Stephen? Are you have you had any other similar dreams since then? Anything touching on it, or have you tried? Is it? Do you think this will change your life in any way? That maybe now I'm going to have kids, or maybe I'm going to look into that.
yeah, definitely in that aspect. I feel like I don't know, I've changed. Like, I feel, I feel more mature, if that makes sense.
Of
Like,
course.
I feel more level headed. I feel more grounded. You know, it does make me want to have kids. Like I said, I feel like I have baby fever now, which is crazy. I, you ask anybody that knows me, they'd be like, never, never. So it's definitely changed some aspects on, how I want my future to be or how I want to navigate my life. Um, and, if that's what I get out of the experience, then that's enough for me.
And fair enough. And what's interesting is that maybe this is the inverse of what I was explaining with, like, you're supposed to go and save this other person or change this other person's life. Maybe by you actually going into that changed your life. Like that was the purpose, was so that you could see your life married with a child. And like you said, your life has changed. So this was like an inverse of what I was just describing. So that is fantastic. Well, Stephen, is there anything else you want to share? Do you have any other amazing, crazy stories that you would like to? I know this is kind of me just kind of throwing it on to you right now, but is there anything else that has happened to you, maybe in the high strangeness area or anything like that?
No, I'm not a pretty normal life.
Until
This,
then, yes.
until now, yes, this has been a very crazy experience. Very crazy. Definitely not normal for my
No,
life.
no, it's quite fascinating. I love how the little details you've had, like you said, oh, we went wine tasting, or we're goofing off in the bed, and just chit chatting, and and then you had your son, that feeling, that emotion that you had when he was given to you. Um, I I think you're on your road to starting your own family here soon, and I wish you the best in it. So, Stephen, I want to say thank you so much for coming on my show. Because I would say this is something brave to talk about, because some people will be there. Of course, there's always the people who will be like, "Oh, that's just a dream." But most people who watch my show know that there's something to this. What exactly it is, we don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. But there's something to it. So thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. Whether people think it's just a regular dream or something else, I'm open to any interpretation.
Well, we sleep for almost like 30% of our lives, right? So scientists have said that it is an alternate reality. Like, we're living an alternate reality when we sleep because we're dreaming. So what's to say that what you saw or what you've had wasn't an actual alternate reality, wasn't an alternate timeline? It was real. It was real.
Yeah.
It, you know, who cares if it's not real to other people? It was real to you. That's the most important part.
Yeah. And based on what I've been reading and everything, it's definitely, the mind is definitely crazier than you thought it was. There's a lot of things that can't be explained. There's, thanks to quantum physics, it's definitely meshing with psychology and everything. So who knows?
I I agree. I think the science that we've had for the last like 50 years has been pretty contained within a box. Like, they don't look outside the box at all. And thankfully, for all these quantum sciences, we're actually looking outside the box. We're like, yeah, there's a lot more. There is something else that is happening, and we got to move past that. We can't just stop because your experience doesn't line up with what's in this box, so we're just going to throw it away. We can't. We got to stop doing that, because there's so many people out there who've had these experiences. We just can't throw them away anymore. There's too many. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to what, not mainstream science, but what quantum science comes forward with and starts giving us some possibilities.
Definitely. Hopefully they open to more research of more things.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. So I want to say thank you again to Stephen for coming out. It was really great, really emotional, actually, as well. Like, once you start to really take into account all of his experiences, and then just having those ripped away from you, they're just behind a screen now, and you can't physically go there. You can go there emotionally and mentally, but you just can't physically go there. Family, child, another life, another friends, job, everything gone. And some of you may say, oh, it's just a dream. I don't think so. I think it's so much more. There's so much more out there that we just don't know. 30% of our life we spend sleeping. That 30%, the scientists have now actually said, and I don't need a scientist to tell me this, but scientists are now saying that 30% is actually us in an alternate realm, an alternate life, okay? An alternate reality. Like I said, I don't need a scientist to tell me that. I believe that. I know that. I knew that. And now science is just catching up, because science always wants to put things in a box. And I'm glad that quantum sciences are coming out and be able to like look outside the box. The box doesn't exist anymore. The box is a speck within this 4-dimensional space now. But it's very difficult, and maybe this was a good experience for Steven, so that his life is now changed. Now he wants children. Now maybe I want to get married. Maybe I want children. Look at that change. He's like, before, no way. Now he's looking into that. So that's something I want you guys to consider, that there's something more to this, because the emotional aspect of it really changes us. Like, there is an emotional reality to this. 100%. He had this experience. He had, for him himself, it was physical, mental, emotional, everything. But we can definitely see as observers, the emotional experience happened. There's no denying that. Okay? There is absolutely no denying that. So I want you to think next time you guys go to sleep and you have a dream. Is there an emotional aspect to it? Yeah. So maybe there's something more. If you guys have had any experiences, please hit me up on, Reddit, on on YouTube. You can email me. All the details are below. And until next time, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Giants, cryptids that call, aliens, histories will uncover it all. With Rob the